Welcome to another episode of Mission Compliance, unleashing growth potential for defense contractors. In today's episode, we're talking about DFARS and NIST SP 800-171 compliance and the most common challenges associated with it. It makes sense. This podcast is called Mission Compliance. We are on-call compliance solutions. It's what we do, so of course we're going to talk about it. We'll break down the complexities of these stringent requirements and share practical strategies to overcome the most common obstacles. Whether you're an IT manager, a compliance officer, or a business leader, you'll find valuable insights to help your organization stay secure and compliant. So grab your notebook and let's get started on this crucial journey to safeguarding your sensitive information. Howdy, partners. We're joined once again today by Mike Frieder, President of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC Professional Assessor. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman.
So, Mike, as I mentioned in the intro, today we're kind of taking it back to the basics, as we also will next week. We're taking it back to the basics a little bit, talking about compliance with DFARS and NIST SP 800-171 and the common challenges associated with that. So with that being said, what are some of the most common pitfalls organizations face when striving to achieve DFARS and NIST compliance, and how can they be effectively addressed?
Yeah, great question. Going super broad, right? So I like
Of
it going
course.
back to the basics. Boy, numerous challenges. I mean, uh, it's almost really more like, where do you begin? I think the first challenge is that a lot of companies who first get this requirement think to themselves, is this even real? Like it's so complex and it's so large in terms of what it requires, that I think the first reaction most defense companies have is like, is this even like really? Is this real? Do we really have to do this? And of course, the answer they ultimately figure out is yes, they have to. And the next one is, well, what if I don't? Right? So that's the next logical question is, what if I don't? And if they begin to research it, they realize that there are massive penalties. And they come in the form of like the nastiest kind of penalties, like these government related penalties that kind of steer off into oblivion with unlimited price tags. False Claims Act is a great example of that. False Claims Act really doesn't have it doesn't have a real limit. The limit that's stated is 3 times the contract value plus $11,000 per incident, but $11,000 per incident could be every single file that CUI that you come into contact with if it's exposed. So it's it's sort of like this unlimited penalty that gets really nasty. I think the smallest penalty I've seen to date is like 9 million. Previous to the last 12 months, I think it was 11 million. And that's enough to shut down most companies, right? So I think, then you sort of get a grip and you go, oh man, hold on, we're really going to have to figure this out. And then the next question is, can I do it myself? There will be sort of this propensity to pile this onto an IT director or a general counsel. We see that a lot. We see a lot of general counsels and attorneys in larger companies take this on because it's a legal related issue. And they may not have compliance people, or maybe they do have compliance people, but those compliance people are specific to ISO or ITAR or something like that. So we then kind of see this hot potato effect of who's going to handle it. And more often than not, it's somebody with some IT knowledge because all of the controls appear to be IT related. Well, it's not IT related. There are some information technology and IT related issues in here, but there's training in HR, which is completely the farthest thing from antisocial IT people there is. And so the reality actually is this is a team effort. And it's nobody's specialty. Well, nobody but On-Call. We're the only company crazy enough to actually specialize in this stuff. So I think that's one of the bigger challenges that you really face is who's going to spearhead this? And the answer is just almost never very clear. The other thing about IT guys is if it's a smaller IT department, they may not be used to interacting with the rest of the company. IT is a pull kind of service. And here's what I mean by that. IT guys get pulled in one direction or another based on where the fire is. That's what they're used to in their career. IT guys are not used to leading and pushing policy. They're just not. I mean, it's not in their wheelhouse. And so you're asking an IT guy to do things that frankly an executive would normally do. And so there's just so much misinformation about how to even properly manage a project like compliance. And again, if you're sub 300 or 500 employees, you probably don't have a compliance officer, and that's another place where on-call really comes in and shines. So again, those are definitely some of the top three things that, happen when you come into contact with the idea that you're going to have to be compliant is, wow, this is a lot. And companies have to make a genuine call. They have to make a call. It's a financial call, and the call is, well, are we going to do this? Do we take on this business? And I think that is where a lot of companies go wrong. They say, yes, we're going to take this on, and they don't factor in the reality that getting compliant has a cost to it, And I don't want to say a substantial cost because for a lot of our clients, it's not a substantial cost. We have a way of streamlining this to make it very affordable, and that's what we do here at On Call. It's what our mission is. Our mission is to make it affordable. Um, and so, but it's not free. I mean, I'll tell you that. I've never seen anyone get through this for free. Maybe some IT and security companies that have extreme security in place already, but they probably had to be compliant with something else. So I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges also is they don't really give this due consideration. Sales guy goes, I got a deal, and everybody starts jumping for joy, not realizing that to get the deal and for it to be legal and for you to not be in severe line of harm, right? Um, you're going to have to put out some money and get compliant. So then the next question is they'll tank it on somebody's desk, right? Or as we say, they'll drop it on their desk like a seagull on a sunny day and just crap right on them. And here you go. Here's this task to do. Not realizing how extreme this task is. Um, if you've never been through this before, 6 to 24 months. That's the running average right now. We've got clients who spent years trying to get compliant, and they just couldn't do it on their own. That is not unusual. So I think another thing is to recognize that there's two ways you can approach this. One is you could try to take this on yourself, and it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake. The second thing is you can simply just reach out to a company like us, budget it in as a line item for compliance in your proposal. The government will understand and factor that. Okay. I don't think that's going to really count against anybody, even if it's a very high expense. The stated expense to get ready for CMMC level 2 certification right now is something like $140,000 to $160,000. It's just, I don't think any price you're going to throw at a contract for compliance is really going to intimidate them. They get it, and they got funds for it. You wouldn't know that unless you work with a company like us before, listen to this podcast, but like that does exist, and there's a very specific way to go about it. So all those things have to be considered. And I think that, there's a right way to do it, and then there's a banging your head against the brick wall way to do it. Banging your head against brick wall is doing it yourself, 6 to 24 months minimum. Probably going to waste a lot of money doing things the wrong way, and just overspend on licensing and stuff you don't need. That's what we find. Or you can sit with a company like us. We can knock it out in 2 to 3 days per location. And sometimes we can handle some virtual locations and things like that fast too. But we do it in a minimum number of days. We have every aspect of compliance handled for you. It's all pre-done. We've done it hundreds and hundreds, I mean, probably 1,000 times by now. And, I think that's really the big thing to keep in mind is factor the cost of getting compliant in, or if you can, get your prime to take it out of the contract. Here's the problem with taking it out of the contract. Someone else, the next person you work with, when you go, ooh, I like this kind of work, it's going to just keep coming back to bite you. You might as well just get compliant. For the minimal cost to get compliant, number one, you're securing your company better than you've ever been secured before. In a world of ransomware and CrowdStrike failures, that's a good thing. You want to do that. Simply put, stuff will take your business down. Nobody wants to do anything that's going to limit payroll from getting out the door. It's a huge hassle. So I think all of those are really, really good starter steps, is to recognize this is going to cost you some money. You need to factor it into your bids, and you need to act accordingly. But yeah, I think that's it. That's it. I mean, boy, I could, you know me, Roman. I mean, we've done like 60, 70 podcasts by now, and I can answer that question into infinitum.
60 is right. This is number 61. So we've been doing this a minute. Uh, but yeah, compliance, like you said, you might as well just go ahead and you get compliant. And whether you're a small business or a larger business with a lot of resources, all companies that work in defense should get compliant. But depending on the size of your business, the process might look a little bit different. The cost is going to be different. So with that being said, how can small and medium-sized businesses with limited resources ensure they meet DFARS and NIST requirements without overwhelming their teams?
Well, I mean, that's a softball question, right? So I'll give you a softball answer. The answer is call us, right? They don't call us on call for nothing. I mean, at the end of the day, number one, your IT guy is probably overworked, underpaid, and tired. Throw compliance on them, and the reality is you might just freaking, I mean, that compliance might be the straw that breaks the camel's back on a good IT guy. They got enough to do to just keep the systems up and running at night and keep the hackers out. That's real talk. All right. I've employed IT guys for the better part of 21 years, and I know exactly what their mindset is. And these are fragile guys you got to take good care of, and they can be a huge asset for your company and keep you up and running, and really aid your sales guys in closing deals and all kinds of stuff in the background. They're just great, great people, great assets for a company, but they are not compliance people. They are generally speaking people who need to understand a problem and get told what to do to fix it. And not everybody's like that, but for the majority of it, that's there's some tail that wags the dog of IT. The tail that wags the dog of IT in the defense industry is the compliance person. If you don't have one of those, I just highly encourage you reach out to us here at On Call. We are that we're that dog, right? We're the dog that wags the tail. We will essentially help your IT person or team understand what it is that they need to be structured like in order to be compliant. Again, cybersecurity experts for over 21 years in the defense industry, we understand how to keep you safe and secure. And we understand how to get you compliant and winning contracts. That's what we do. And so, um, I don't know. I would love to give you a much more elaborate answer than that, but it's a really simple question. It's what's the easiest way to get compliant? And the answer is call on call. Here's what I would not do. I would not go to one of these companies that sells you into a pre-fit solution like a templated solution. Sorry, but your company has, no matter what your company is, I don't care if you're one person or 63,000 employees, you've got unique things about the way you do business and interact with your computers that are different from every other company. A pre-made templated thing won't solve your problem. A subscription service will not solve your problem. You actually need real humans to come in and do extensive troubleshooting and discovery on what you have going on in order to meet these controls in your way. There's no other way around it. Believe me, if I could have automated it, I would have fired half my staff and hired AI agents, and we would have done it. But that's just unfortunately not the way that this works. There's just got to be a real system in place for how to get you from zero to compliant. And we've built that system. We haven't just built the system, we've built it and tested it over 1,000 times. So I think from that perspective, yeah, I mean, there is no other answer. I mean, there's no other company that does what we do. There's no other company that can walk in and go zero to compliant in 3 days, 2 days. There's no other company that has ready to go solution stacks if that's what you want and what you have in place won't cut it. There's no other company that has the services that we have, from ongoing virtual compliance officer services to the ability to manage your entire infrastructure, to building Azure government virtualized infrastructure to truly create the ultimate compliance zone, if you will, right? The ultimate air gap space to hold all of your compliant information where nobody would ever second guess that you're compliant because Microsoft, the government, got together and made that environment, and it's specifically for you, the defense contractor. We're standing up a bunch of those environments every day for clients, and that's what we do. I think every company is unique and has unique needs. If you try to treat this as a templated one-size-fits-all answer, you will overspend and just waste a lot of time not getting the right answers for you. So yeah, that's an easy one. Simple answer is just call us and we'll take care of it for you.
There you go. Every once in a while, we like to throw out a softball question because, after all, we are wearing company shirts. We need to plug our services as often as we can because it's, as I said at the top, it's what we do. Um,
Hey,
But
ask me a smart question. I'll give you a smart answer.
exactly. But as we've discussed on this podcast before, a lot of compliance uh, duties fall on the IT guy if your company's not big enough to have a compliance officer. And then if you have a compliance officer, good, that's his job. But a lot of this starts with having a culture of compliance, which starts with employee training and that kind of thing. So with that being said, what role does employee training play in achieving and maintaining compliance with DFARS and NIST, and what are some effective training strategies?
Yeah, great question. It's huge, right? So NIST has an entire training and awareness control family to it. So it's 1/14 of being compliant. There's two ways to secure this information. One is with technology and physical safeguards and stuff like that. The other issue is there's some things you can't put a handcuff around. You can't stop humans that have legitimate system access from doing dumb things unless you train them. So training is paramount and maybe the most important thing, even if your systems aren't secure, because you can at least train them to not do the things that could easily get them attacked and get that information stolen and leaked. So uh, yeah, I mean, it's how important is it? I don't know. I think it's probably the number one priority. If they don't understand the rules of the system they just got the keys to, it's like a toddler with a toy, right? If you give a toddler a clay pot, the first thing the toddler is going to do, because he doesn't understand the rules of the clay pot, is take it and bang it against a very hard surface and shatter it. It's just instinctive. They're going to take it and they're going to abuse it and they're going to go find where the boundaries are. We are all humans are boundary testing creatures. We want to understand how big the fishbowl is that we're swimming in. And guaranteed, you give somebody a computer that is not properly protected, they're going to do silly things. Give them a computer that is properly protected, they're still going to try to figure out how to do silly things. It's just that's the nature of humans, right? They're always going to try to, go in whatever direction there isn't a brick wall standing in front of. So training is paramount.
Absolutely, and this was as we said, a painting with a broad brush stroke topic. We like to do that every once in a while because some of this stuff that we cover is very, very, very specific. Not to say that compliance isn't specific in its own way, but in terms of the topics, we like sometimes you got to keep it broad, which is what we did. Those were some valuable answers and insights there, but as we often do at the end of these podcasts, we like to take our foot off the gas a bit and ask a bit of a sillier question to lighten the load just a touch. And on this podcast and at this company, we like superheroes. A lot of our analogies and questions, silly questions, have been based around superheroes, and this one is no different. So this may or may not be another softball question. Take it however you will, Mike. But if DFARS and NIST compliance were a superhero team, who would be their arch nemesis?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's a great question. Um, I think the answer is the Blob. Fully
Okay.
aware it's not a superhero. However, I think that the Blob is the answer to that question because the Blob is this thing that sits around and it doesn't do anything until you least expect it, and then it just crawls all over you and consumes you. And that is precisely what being penalized for a false claim is like. And if you're not getting compliant and you're thinking that you're going to be okay with that, there's two things that are going to just absolutely consume you and you just won't see them coming. Number one, you're not going to win as much defense work as you could have. It's just that simple. It's such a minimal cost to get compliant and put your cyber and information security in the right place versus the benefit of being well prepared, turning it around, using it as an asset, and going out and winning way more defense work. Um, Opportunity cost is the blob that will absolutely eat you alive, and you'll never see it coming. The second thing is that the blob is about the best bad guy that I could ever think of to really describe what it is like to be attacked by the government. It's slow moving, and when it hits your company, it's just going to consume you. You'll be literally paralyzed from operating while you deal with inspectors and when you deal with DIBCAC and DCMA coming in to analyze every aspect of your company and figure out what you're doing wrong and right. And they will find things that are wrong. That's their job. Their entire job, the reason they have a salary is because their job is to find things that are wrong. It's like an IRS auditor. They will find it. And believe me, across 110 controls, you're bound to be screwing something up. Remember, there's a DoD memo out there that says that agencies should, not that they can, they should withhold payment immediately upon discovering that you are not compliant. There is no hold for 30 days. It's just stop paying them. Let them get it sorted out. The shortest time I've ever heard of work being frozen when someone was out of compliance was 9 months.
Hmm.
Most companies can't survive 9 months without being paid. So I think, if we really sit down and think about, the baddest of the bad guys, and we look at, what an evil arch nemesis bad guy would be, I would point at the blob because it's ugly, it's consuming, it doesn't move that fast, but when it starts invading you, it's very hard to get that thing out of there. You're just, you're doomed to a life of agony and misery and slow death. And that is death by compliance. So that's what I would compare it to.
Well, there you go. I can't say I was expecting the blob as an answer, but I guess when you're talking about defense regulations as a superhero team, you can't really know what to expect.
That's the fun. You ask the question, I'll come up with an answer.
And for
Hopefully
whatever
you like it.
reason, and for whatever reason, when you mentioned the blob, the first thing that came into my mind was on SpongeBob when I was a kid. There was a villain. There was a superhero duo within the SpongeBob universe known as Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. And and one of the villains that they would face was the Dirty Bubble. And he's exactly what he sounds like, a giant filthy bubble. And he would just hover and go. And so when you were describing the blob, for whatever reason, the image of the dirty bubble is what popped into my head. But anyway, before this gets even more unhinged, that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights and practical strategies, as well as inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank Mike for joining us and talking about the broad brushstroke topic of challenges with compliance with DFARS and NIST. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us via our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If you haven't already, what should they do, Mike?
Well, they should like, subscribe, and for sure tell a buddy in the defense industry about our podcast. It's really picking up steam, and we sure do love to hear the feedback.
There you go. If you do what Mike said and you subscribe, you'll always know when new episodes like this one are released. And we truly appreciate it if you could rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us next time as we delve further into the dynamic world of defense, security, and industry innovation. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.